President. Thank you, all of you, for being here for this, what I believe will be an historic March for Life, particularly as we await the Dobbs decision by the United States Supreme Court. I've been in the pro-life movement along with my wife. We actually met in the pro-life movement back in 1972. Was director of my state Right to Life organization and ran for Congress in 78, lost and ran in 1980 and won. And I do chair the pro-life caucus, so we are constantly trying to push back, to be on an aggressive defense as the other side tries to force us to fund abortion and to eviscerate every pro-life law, modest as they are, that we've been able to get over the last 48 years or almost 50 years. And also to be on offense, not offensively, but civilly, to try to protect the weakest and most vulnerable among us, the unborn child, and equally their mother. You know, my wife and I, and so many of you, we work with post-abortive women. We work with women with pregnancy care centers, and they need to know at all times how important it is that they are loved, that they are cared for, and that there is a way to reconciliation, especially through prayer and through the church. And Project Rachel and the other initiatives that are underway throughout every diocese in the country reaches out and says, God is there, Jesus is there for you. And many of the people who run pregnancy centers, not a majority, but many that are in that work, either had an abortion or were at the point of almost having, and are grateful and are trying to give back. Let me say a brief word about Sean Pender. You know, I got very involved with human rights in the 1980s when I first got elected with the East Bloc countries, with Solidarity, working really, really hard. My first trip was to the Soviet Union, to St. Petersburg, and to Moscow in 1982 on behalf of dissidents. Went all over the Warsaw Pact countries. And then Sean Pender came and said, well, why aren't you doing more on the north of Ireland? Why are you, please, will you embrace that issue? And frankly, he's been a mentor to me and to my staff. Mary Noonan, my chief of staff, was here. And we listened carefully to what he had to say. And I am eternally grateful that you got me and my staff and our effort into the issue of trying to protect not just the Catholics, but democracy and freedom. And what we focused on from the very beginning was the egregious abuse by the police, the RUC, and Ronnie Flanagan and all the others that would disproportionately, it was an entirely one-sided sectarian police force that went after Catholics horribly. You mentioned Geraldine Finucane and Pat Finucane, of course, who was gunned down in his own home, and she was wounded as well. I've had Geraldine testify at 2 of our hearings, and you could have heard a pin drop, and the AOH has testified as well, when she told her story and was just seeking to find out who, and it goes up very high, is part of the collusion in the British government against her husband who murdered that great defense attorney. Rosemary Nelson was a witness at our hearings, and she said the RUC have told me they want to kill me, assassinate me. And it was believed, after we all thought about it, that it might give her some measure of protection to come to Washington and testify. So we convened a hearing with her. Again, you could have heard a pin drop, and then unfortunately the haters killed her and assassinated her with a car bomb, which just again underscored the lack of rule of law and the fact that the British government was complicit in just terrible things. Every time there's been a suggestion that the British government was going to be honest about all of this, they put up a stop sign and they give veto power, as they did, to the investigations, always citing national security or some nonsense like that. No, if you've colluded and killed, you don't get protection. You need to be exposed and sent to prison for the rest of your life. So we have worked it out. I actually chaired 15 hearings, did legislation, again, working with Sean. I can't tell you what a great impact this man has had. Thank you, Sean. I'm Irish. I'm Smith, but I'm Irish, County Clare and Cavan. I remember my first trip to Ireland. I remember I was walking. We were in the capital in Dublin, and I'm walking. I said, "Everybody looks like my grandfather." and he was very, very Irish, and he was the Smith. And we have an O'Reilly in the family. My wife's got O'Reilly in her family, and so we are very, very, proud and deeply grateful to our heritage as Irish Americans, because what a small country that has had such a disproportionately positive impact in the entire world, whether it be the missionaries who went out and brought the gospel, of course St. Patrick and all the great work he did, but as you all know as well, Ireland has taken a bad turn on the right to life issue, and a lot of the lawmakers that I know in the Dáil, as well as in the assembly in Belfast, have fought very hard to protect life. And in Northern Ireland, it was imposed by the British government again, and that is deeply offensive. And they now have the equivalent of what all of the UK has, and that is abortion up to 26 weeks. And in like manner, there was a major detour in Dublin when they embraced abortion on demand as well. A lot of that influence came from Planned Parenthood and all of the NGOs, and from the Obama administration, which pushed very hard, as they do, unfortunately, as the Biden administration is doing now, to have a world where there's an unfettered right to abortion, no conscience rights, and publicly subsidized by every taxpayer, not just in this country, but all over the world. So the fight has never been on life more, engaged. I can't tell you how many times over the last 50 years state legislatures and the Congress would pass a bill, and then we would wait. It would be enjoined by the Supreme Court or by a district and then appellate court, and then nullified. Even partial birth abortion, that hideous procedure where the baby is half born and the legs are outside of the mother's womb, dangling, and you could see the legs, and then the baby's brain is literally sucked out with it was to prevent, the whole reason for that method was to prevent live births. They didn't want to deal with the complications of a live birth, and what do you do PR-wise when a child survives a late-term procedure to execute him or her. And so that's somebody was just saying there with Father Pavone the other day. Yes, that's right, thank you. And he I remember, gave this great sermon where he called it the applause from hell. And it was the doctor who invented this hideous procedure called partial birth abortion. And when he told his audience of abortionists and nurses and activists, when they effectuated fetal demise, when the brains were literally sucked out, they broke into applause. And he dubbed it, properly so, the applause from hell. But I'm optimistic, like you are, that the Supreme Court will at least allow the legislatures to enact laws. I'm told as recently as 25 minutes ago, by Kevin Brady, a congressman from Texas, that they believe 120 babies are being saved every day in Texas because of the heartbeat law that has not been overturned by the court. And that is, what a blessing that is. And again, if Dobbs is allowed and they go beyond the 15 weeks in terms of allowing states to do more, we will see a major protection of life. Finally, we had a huge battle on the floor of the House last September, when Speaker Pelosi brought up the Abortion on Demand Act till birth. And not only does that bill would allow, like Governor Murphy in my own state, who signed the law just the other day, last week, that allows abortion till birth, but this bill would go even beyond that. It would compel public funding for abortion everywhere, anywhere. It's already in Obamacare, but the Hyde Amendment is still intact, and amendments that I wrote years ago, barring or precluding funding under the Federal Employees Health Benefits Program, they're still in existence. But this bill would get rid of every bit of it. It would force every one of us to unfortunately subsidize abortion. We know that the Hyde Amendment and the other prohibitions on funding have saved at least 60,000 children per year, 2.4 million since Hyde was enacted, and that comes from the other side as well, who concur that when the money's not there to effectuate the demise of the kids, other alternatives are embraced, like giving birth to that baby. So that's encouraging. There's also the conscience issue. globally, the big push by the abortion advocates or supporters is to say no one in the medical profession, no healthcare entity can say no to abortion. You risk losing your license, you get sanctioned, you lose your job. But we have conscience protection in this country. For 8 years under Obama, because I fought it every single week, we could not get the Obama administration to enforce the law. HHS, right nearby, the Division of Civil Rights are empowered to enforce it, and they wouldn't do it. So Catholic hospitals in California especially were being told, you do it or else. You won't get funding from the federal government, like Medicare, Medicaid, and all the rest. So that is a clear and present danger globally, because that's part of their strategy to coerce everyone. I remember one a registered nurse from Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City. She came, we had her at a press conference. She was told, you lose your job if you don't participate in a dismemberment abortion. She thought about it. She kicks herself down to this day with guilt that she said, I don't want to lose my job. And her job, besides assisting, was to reassemble the body parts of that aborted baby through dismemberment. And nightmares is the least of what she's experienced. She has conscience protection, a federal law, but not enforced. So that's a major challenge. And in Ireland and everywhere else, that's part of the shtick that the other side is using to say, you want to be in healthcare? Well, this is healthcare. And that is what President Biden said when he reversed himself. He used to be for the Hyde Amendment. Oh, totally. He voted for it, said he voted for it 50 times, and bragged about it, even in his book. And now he's on the other side, sadly, pushing for the end of the Hyde Amendment. So we're fighting like you can't believe. Finally, I just can't tell you how important it is for AOH to be so involved with this. To talk to the lawmakers. People's hearts can be changed. I'm always reminded that Bernard Nathanson, the founder of NARAL, he ran the largest abortion clinic in New York City. He had a change of heart. He actually became a Catholic. And he said, I've come to the agonizing conclusion that I have presided over 60,000 deaths. And of course, all those women, the co-victims, were hurt as well. And he became a pro-lifer. And he said, if wombs had windows, it would change everything. Ultrasound is changing it all. The Knights of Columbus are doing great work. You're doing great work in trying to promote the idea of ultrasound, getting them into pregnancy care centers. And once the woman sees that baby, it's the game changer. So we're at a tipping point. Pray the court does the right thing. And then in a very real way, the battle begins on life. Because now we can legislate. Even the Hyde Amendment 40 years ago was subjected to a Supreme Court challenge, and it only survived 5-4. So who gets on that court is all important, and they'll sweep it right away. Sotomayor the other day, in a very bizarre thing, talked about pain, and that the child really doesn't feel pain. You tell that to the physicians who are doing surgery prenatally, who anesthetize the child because they feel the pain and they feel it excruciatingly so. If you're cutting in a benign way, in a good way, to help cure a problem. Of course, the abortionists couldn't care less, and they don't care what pain is experienced. It's now at 15 weeks, the pain, and the evidence is overwhelming on that. So, thank you, and AOH and Sean, thank you all, the whole leadership, for what you're doing, and let's pray and fast and work hard that we get the babies protected.